What's up, guys? Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. In today's episode, I'm going to go over 10 things that I learned from working with eBay over the last 3 years. I've been to a lot of eBay events and I've drawn some really cool information that I want to share with you on this video. So please smash the like button and consider subscribing. There are 10 really useful tips in this video. So let's get straight into it. Number one, I want you guys to recognize that going to these events, the actual workshop that eBay puts on is not super useful. It's the people that you meet that are insanely useful and make it always worth it. If you have the opportunity to go to an eBay event, go meet the sellers, ask questions, tell people what stage of the reselling process you are in, and people are super duper nice. So I'm going to start with the first event that I got introduced to, which was the eBay local event. We have a local meetup here in the Bay Area. Amazingly, it's actually held at eBay HQ. It's in San Jose, and I went to those events and it blew my mind. These are other people who are doing the same thing as me. There was only one thing that kind of stuck out to me, which was it was almost all one demographic, which is over 50-year-old people who do $2,000 or less revenue on the site. So that surprised me. I was surprised there were not a majority of people who were doing it for a living. It was more older hobby sellers. So no offense to older hobby sellers. That's fine. I'm just saying that I was surprised there wasn't more diversity in the people that were at the event. So what I did when I went to those events is I actually tried posting on Instagram, hey, there's actually a local event at eBay. Who wants to come down? 10 people raised their hands. I reached out to eBay and said, hey, can you do something for us? They were very nice. They opened up a happy hour for us, got to know us, asked us where we're from, and the demographic was totally different. We're talking about minorities, younger people, and people who are millennials, Gen Z, people who I would never see normally at an eBay meetup group. So let me know in the comment section below if you've been to a local event and what kind of people actually go. The people that I brought from my account, my following, and my Instagram are very different. I feel like this is not an aside to eBay. Like a slight to eBay, but they don't do a good job, in my opinion, of reaching Gen Z or millennials. And the only sort of involvement they have is sort of on the Instagram community, which is sort of this demographic. But their marketing and their advertising and their seller information is definitely geared more towards this 50+ hobby seller. Nothing wrong with that, just an observation from me. And I just wanted to point that out because that was how I was introduced into the community. As an outsider, I went into an event that was all 50+ hobby sellers. That's also my experience with eBay Open. But let's go into the next thing that I've done with eBay, which is I got invited to a top seller lunch. I don't know how this happened, but I got invited to one and I went, and the majority of the people at the table earned over $100,000 a month. It was grossed over $100,000 per month on eBay, and I was amazed. I went from a hobby seller event to a big baller event, right? And I'm wondering, why am I at this table? I'm not doing this kind of volume. So I learned more in that lunch than I did maybe from all the other eBay events combined, because these top sellers were given an opportunity to discuss what they were having problems with. There was a seller that had $7,000 a day in returns. He wasn't upset. He was calm. He was just talking about, what can we do to expedite this return policy? Why can't I just immediately issue them a refund on mobile? I have to log in to the eBay website again, then log in the PayPal. There should just be a button that says issue refund. He's not even trying to, he just wants to move on to the next transaction and talking about things that could be improved in the app. It was awesome. Scott Cutler was there, Bob Coupens. They were both eBay executives. It blew my mind that they would go to a meeting with regular sellers. It was very cool. I also didn't know at that meeting that you can make a relationship directly with a manufacturer. There was a Korean couple there that had a direct deal with Logitech. I thought that was badass. They had a deal with Logitech to resell mice and webcams. And they had around 500 sales a day, which was insane. Because you think about, I say, you should have 10 items to sell 10 times a day for $10 profit. How about 500 items selling of 2 products, right? Just webcam, mice. That's it. One brand, one direct deal. All of the returns from the company go to them. They refurbish them, flip them back on the website. I was shocked by that because I had never been introduced to someone like that. So I thought it was very cool because it doesn't occur to you that you can just work directly with the manufacturer and specialize in one thing. And what they were asking about is rank. How do we make sure we rank number one? We don't want to pay promoted listings if we only have 2 listings. If we have the best mouse or the best webcam at the best price, we should just get the deal. Why don't we get all that traffic? How come this person who has 1 mouse and 1 sweatshirt, why is their listing ranked above ours? That makes no sense. And it's basically because eBay rotates the traffic a little bit, and they were a little bit puzzled by that. But this was cool, hearing it right from these larger sellers. I would love eBay to pay these type of sellers to show up at events and talk, because I would much rather hear from them what best practices are versus a slide deck put together by somebody in some department. I'd rather hear from a direct seller what kind of challenges they're going through and how they can actually improve it. Also, I'd like to see some kind of timeline on if these things can actually be executed. I'm totally okay with eBay saying, you know what? You guys want this feature, but it's not on our timeline. That would be fine. It'd be better than making the suggestion and then no response ever. That kind of frustrates sellers, but I want to know how I can be invited into these top seller lunches. How much volume do I need to do to be invited to the top seller summit? Jamie, the new CEO, mentioned that he had gone to a lot of top seller summits, and that kind of annoys me because I've been talking about eBay for 3 years nonstop online. I don't even know where that event is held. I don't know how to get into it. I would love to make it a goal of mine one day to be invited properly to that event because I do enough volume. Also, why isn't that event accessible to regular sellers? I would love to hear what they're talking about. Make that into a slide deck and send that out instead of generic best practices and how to write a good title. I think most of us understand that part. We want to see what it takes to go from this to like a brick and mortar, or maybe hiring some employees, and we want to hear from actual bigger sellers. Okay. Next thing I was invited to was the eBay Becoming eBay Summit, where they have 250 new employees. This is very cool because eBay has a lot of new people working for them, and they get sellers to go on stage and tell them about what we're going through. I find this insanely valuable. Also, shout out to Melissa Ojeda. She did an amazing job of introducing me to a lot of eBay's younger employees, and also she set up a few different events that I went to where I actually got to test some of the stuff that eBay is coming out with, new tools, new item specific tools. I thought that was cool, actually seeing how eBay is built. It gave me an idea of just how complicated it is. I think if eBay let sellers know like what goes into making a change for 1 billion listings, maybe eBay sellers will be a little bit more patient instead of trying to burn down the building every time they ask for more item specifics. They could see how the sausage is made on the back end. So that the Becoming eBay Summit was very cool, very informative, and I feel like more sellers should be invited to that, because I feel like sometimes they invite the same people over and over again. So maybe get a different perspective of different sellers into that event so that the new eBay employers can get an idea of what everything is going on with people that are actually selling for a living. Okay, so now I want to talk about eBay Open. eBay Open is an amazing event. If you guys have time, go. It's going to cost you a couple of grand. One, it's in the middle of the week, which I think is odd. I think that eBay definitely has the ability to hold it on the weekend, which would make it less painful to go to. If you go to it during the week, not only do you have to pay for the flight and the hotel, but you also can't ship those days. It makes it harder for the people who are trying to scale to the next level. So what I end up seeing at the event is sort of like these super high-end sellers and then just beginners. I think it would allow the middle people to go if there was something that was actually done on the weekend. Maybe just a 1 or 2 day event instead of eBay Open, where, it gives a more well-rounded approach to getting more sellers in there. I think eBay Open's also a little bit, it's too cheap for like a higher end event and too expensive for a beginner. So that being said, I'm going to go over some tips that I learned from these events that really, really changed my business. So first one from DIY Mike, super nice guy. You guys can follow him on Instagram, and he has a huge YouTube channel. He talked about manufacturing products in the USA. I thought that was amazing. I didn't really never even occurred to me, because I thought everything is made in China, right? Not true. Even though he's Asian, he manufactures his products right here in the USA. So that's inspired me for my replenishables to look for ways to produce it here in the US. Also, we've seen the supply chain get disrupted recently, right? So I would love to have my local manufacturers here so that they can give me product and I don't have to, worry about overseas production in case of an emergency. So DIY Mike gave me a lot of great ideas. He was on stage with Guitar Center. I thought that was cool and interesting, but also I can relate more to what DIY Mike is doing because he's just a regular person running a 7-figure store versus Guitar Center, which is multiple millions and a huge corporation. That's totally different than what DIY Mike does. I would love to have more workshops where they hopefully compensate a seller to put together what they do to give us a better idea of that next step. And there's just a huge range in the information they give. It's either too generic or too high end. Okay. Next is, shout out to Doug. He introduced me to Jack Shang, who is one of the greatest eBayers ever. I think at one point he was doing 65 million and tens of thousands of orders a day. I learned from him that he's very discerning with what he buys. So pretty much only one category, electronics, has to be first class mail, and he has to be able to get more than one of them. And they're all generic. So I hear from people saying, oh, I can only sell name brand stuff on eBay. Well, he sold more items on eBay than any other person, and all of it is generic. All of it is first class mail. He just figured out how to rank it. That blew my mind because he was just narrowing it down by the shape and category versus what it is. It made me realize that a lot of the larger sellers just operate off of volume and keywords. They're not looking for name brands. When you think eBay, sometimes you think great brands at blowout prices, right? But it's also good generic brands. Another way to look at this is like when you go to Trader Joe's, you're just buying milk, eggs, bacon. Maybe you don't care what brand it is. I use that same analogy for what Jack Shang did. And it was cool to meet him. And also, like a lot of people that I meet that I consider super up there, super humble, super nice. You would never know that he's the greatest eBayer ever, right? So next is Elijah, super nice guy, very inspiring, went from homeless to running a brick and mortar store, also very young, very inspiring, very insightful, still text him to this day when we talk about what promoted listings rate to use, how to get rid of aged inventory. It's really nice having like a friend in the business to be able to bounce ideas off of. That's invaluable. People would pay hundreds of dollars an hour for consulting for that, but you can just get a friend that you can take care of and you'll be fine. I also met a different Jack that taught me how to use the Raise app and gift cards and coupons on the different websites for online arbitrage and in the store. And all I had to do was buy pancakes. So for pancakes, I basically learned how to shave off 1 to 8% off of the prices when you're doing online arbitrage. Insane. It's kind of odd how many people are named Jack, but also met Jack Weaver, who is an incredible guy and has a great guide on reselling, which I'll include in the link below. It's free. So Jack has been an incredible resource for me in understanding how these deal sites work. So on Black Friday or when Target or Best Buy launches some kind of a deal, help me understand what these companies are trying to do and why they don't like resellers. They're using these events and sale events to bring new customers in to spend money on the website. They don't really want resellers buying it and then flipping it. That's not why they have those products up there. So it was cool to see how he thinks through it, since a lot of his business is this kind of like online sniping. Also want to bring up Jack Pittman, who taught me about drop shipping and the fact that there are millions of sellers outside of the US, which makes sense to me because there's only 350 million people here, but 7 billion people on Earth. It makes sense that everyone's trying to capitalize on our market. People have been saying, oh, eBay is flooded with all these drop shippers. But to me, that makes sense because they're not physically here, but there are all these different websites here that they can drop ship off and basically arbitrage the difference between the different website prices. I find that fascinating. Also makes me realize that we're on a global market and competing against people who pay literally 10 times less money to live. Here in the Bay Area, it's probably about $3,000 for rent. And there, Jack is paying $200 for a house in Nicaragua, full of people who are doing e-commerce, right? So knowing that makes you adjust your business and realize it's going to get more challenging maybe in the future. You really need to do a great job to stand out, but we have the advantage because we can have the stock in-house here. We're going to get premium search ranking because we physically have the item. So it's important to realize just how competitive it is worldwide. So, last thought, through eBay, I met Reyes, the entrepreneur, very cool guy, and he taught me about all the different opportunities that are available. And I think this is important to recognize because he is an influencer on YouTube and he talks about all different types of ways to make money. Uber Eats, Postmates, those scooters. He talks about the different ways to make money. And he told me that eBay is the least popular amongst Gen Z and millennials. They're looking for different ways to make money, not eBay. So I feel like eBay has kind of dropped the ball. Why not eBay? How come kids that are Gen Z or millennials aren't shopping or selling on eBay? I find that to be a major problem, but I learned that from talking to Reyes, and I feel like it's these little insights added up over time that give you a good understanding of what kind of business we're in. I'm doing this for a living. I love e-commerce, so I'm here for good, and I love learning about all this stuff. Meeting these people is amazing. So, now I want to talk about Reseller Fam Live. I did an event in 2018. I co-hosted it with 4 other women. It was amazing. It cost about $50,000 to host this event. And we only made $45,000. So we actually lost $1,000 each putting together this event, but it was totally worth it. We invited 10 awesome resellers, people like Rally Roots, Hustle at Home Mom, Not Your Dad's CPA, Hustlebee, Hustler Hacks to come in and actually speak on a specific topic and give insight, give a workshop and a printout to everyone there. Then we organized all of the happy hours and made it so you could really get to know those people. To this day, I'm still really good friends with probably a dozen or so people from that actual event. It was insane. Now, I want to point out that that event would not have happened if eBay wasn't the headline sponsor. They gave us a ton of money. That helped that event even happen. And actually, I think that if I were to do another event for eBay sellers, I'm pretty confident I could get eBay to sponsor some of the money, right? And it makes sense for them. They're very, very open to ideas like this. Maybe they're not talking about it publicly, but they will help you if you're trying to put together an event. They're just not going to be proactive. It's more like you put the event together, they'll give you a little bit of cash to maybe pay for the lunch. That's how eBay works in my experience. So if you want to organize it, reach out to the community team and see what you can put together. But I feel like it's more like you put it together, they'll come and help as they can, or they'll send lanyards, or they'll send shipping tape or giveaways. They've been always really good about that. That event was awesome. I've also done other meetups around the country. I've done them in New York. I've done them in Southern California. I've loved meeting all these different sellers, and it's very, very cool. And again, my experience with eBay is they're not proactively reaching out to have influencers make these events, which I think they should. They had that most recent eBay upfront, but that again, it didn't involve a lot of influencers. It was more just eBay corporate talking. And eBay had the eBay champions group that I was in, and they said, we don't want to be just a corporate head talking. And then the person giving all the presentations was like the VP of something. So it was literally, they didn't want to be a corporate talking head, but that's what the event was. And I feel like a lot of eBay events are like that. I feel like they should maybe reach out to influencers, have them host the event, give them some assets, and really make it amazing. So now, hopefully that was useful, guys. Again, smash the like button. Appreciate your time. But I want to talk about the one negative thing that I have to talk about with eBay, and that is actually specifically a person. So I have no issue with eBay itself, really, but I do have an issue with Brian Burke. He is in charge of something to do with community, and I feel like he only works with the same sellers over and over again, and he really wants to only go to these meetups that are one demographic. I find I have an issue with this, and because he should be out there creating opportunities for different types of sellers to participate in these events. I think that would be better for eBay all the way around. He actually personally called me to let me know the bad news that I wasn't going to be able to participate in an eBay program because one of my accounts had fallen below standard. That's it. Can't participate by. I think that's insane considering the amount of work that I do for eBay. He didn't say like, hey, you're 1 or 2 transactions from being above standard where you could participate. Didn't offer any of that. He was cold as ice. Basically, the way I felt was like I was treated like a criminal, and I have had multiple other friends treated that way by him specifically. So again, I don't want to throw eBay under the bus because I've only had a bad experience with specific people at eBay. So I want to point that out because I feel like there's a lot of negativity with eBay, the company right now, when it might just be a few bad people at the company, as we noticed in that last lawsuit. So guys, hopefully that's useful. I wanted to keep it positive. There's a lot of amazing things I learned from eBay events over the years, and hopefully you guys gain some insights from those larger sellers here, and hopefully we can get invited or at least see behind the scenes of these top seller summits. I want to see what's going on. I know at eBay Open, they have a different color lanyard. So I want to know, what does it take to be that kind of seller? Hopefully when they make eBay Open again, I will be one of those sellers, and I'll give you guys an insight on that. So guys, take care. Until next time, make progress daily.